You're okay now.
About how many people were at the last session?
We had about, we were up in the 30s, and there's many of them were, parents and kids.
Okay, great.
We've already got 14 people signed in here today already for this session. So we'll be starting right at 10 o'clock, everybody. So just hang in here. Get yourself a cup of tea, cup of coffee. Ready to go right at 10. Yeah, feel free during this time before we really get started to post a little comment on the chat section. You can find that by hovering towards the bottom of this Zoom page, and a chat box can come up if you click on that. Tell everyone where you're from, maybe. Good. Audrey Johnson. Hi, Audrey, from Philadelphia. Pittsburgh. More in Philadelphia. Great. Oil City out in Western PA. Good. Sure you all get a little moving around in between sessions here. We don't get to walk from room to room, so be sure you get to move around a little bit before we start the next session. Heather Ramsey, hi, one of my evaluation families from Pittsburgh. Patty Stout says she misses the snacks. Well, you have to go to the then we didn't charge you anything for coming. Everyone should go take 2 minutes and go get some snacks. Bonnie is sending all of us virtual snacks. That's great. Be a community of virtual snackers. Hello. By the way, I'm posting on the chat right now the link to the online survey that you can fill in at any point during the day after you've attended a session. You can do it for the whole day, but we just want to keep posting that so you can see that. It'll be an online survey in keeping with our online conference. I think it would probably be okay to post the survey multiple times, but you might want to just wait till the end of the day. Okay, well, I think we're going to get started here. We're 1 minute till 10, so we'll get started a minute early. We have a lot of people here already. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Susan Richman. I'm a member of the board of directors of the Pennsylvania Homeschoolers Accreditation Agency. And I've been an evaluator since the homeschool law was passed way back in the 1980s. And I'm just the host here for this session. My husband, Howard Richman, who you see at the top of your screen probably, is going to be leading this session about the PHAA program, about how it works, about how you get involved, about how you take part, about what our guidelines are, the history of the program. And he'll be talking about probably answering a lot of questions you might have. And if you have any questions, you can post them at any time during the chat. In the chat, I'll be keeping my eye on that. And we'll see if we have time at the end that we can ask a few questions. Because you're muted, I'll pick out a few representative questions that we'll be asking towards the end. Okay? And I'm going to turn it over to my husband, who's the executive director of the Pennsylvania Homeschoolers Program. He was the brains and the vision behind the whole big idea. He'll probably be telling you the story of how that happened. And he's been an evaluator for many, many years, teacher in our AP program also. And I'm going to turn it over to my husband, Howard, and I'm going to zap out my video. And there we go.
Okay, welcome everybody. I'm glad you came to this session. This is our very first online conference and my first time giving a session online, so we'll see how it goes. I'm prepared to share my screen with everybody, and let me see if I can figure out how to do it. Susan, come on upstairs and help me.
Okay.
And once I share my screen, I'm going to be going through a bunch of slides that I prepared. And let's see, I'm just not seeing my controls, so Susan might be able to help me with that. And let's see. Oh, wait, I found it. All right, few technical difficulties. So we're starting with screen 2.
And then you have to click.
Thank you for bearing with us. We're all up to the Homeschoolers Accreditation Agency website, PHAA.org, right now. This is what you'd see at the top of the opening page. Almost everything I'm going to say in my talk is somewhere on that page. Some of it is on this page, some of it is in our guide to the Pennsylvania Homeschoolers Diploma, which you can find linked on the page. So if you want to read most of what I've said or find more about it, you can find it there. Here's the link to the guide to the Pennsylvania Homeschoolers Diploma that appears on that page. And by the way, there's also a link to the guide to the PA Homeschool Law. So we have both available to people on that page. And here's what the guide to PA Homeschoolers Diploma looks like. It's no longer a print edition, it's just a PDF now. I'm going to start my talk by giving you a history of the PHAA Diploma program as a way of introducing it. And then I'm going to take you through the whole process from joining PHAA as your kids go into high school to getting the diploma at the end and beyond. First of all, let's start with 1988. That was a year in which Pennsylvania was prosecuting more homeschoolers than any other state in the country. For 4 years, Susan and I had been working very hard to get a new homeschool law passed in Pennsylvania that would end those prosecutions. And it finally passed at the end of 1988. We had 2 champions in our legislature. I'll bring up their names again in a little while. One was Republican Representative Joe Pitts, who went on to become a congressman, and the other was Democrat Representative Ron Cowell, who was head of the House Education Committee. Now, Joe Pitts was the one who wrote the first version of our bill, and he took that from a bill that had just passed for Christian schools in Pennsylvania. Now, Christian schools were required to file an affidavit, so homeschoolers are required to file affidavits. Christian schools were required to teach certain courses and a certain number of hours and days, so homeschoolers were required to teach those courses and hours and days. Christian schools had graduation requirements, so graduation requirements were put into the law, and graduation requirements mean that homeschools in Pennsylvania can give diplomas. If you have graduation requirements, you obviously have graduation. Pennsylvania became the first and maybe the only state still in the country that has graduation requirements for homeschoolers in their home education law. Now we're going on to 1990. Now you might notice there was a gap. There was never a problem during the 1988 school year of homeschoolers graduating because homeschooling was so new. Finally, we began to have people graduating. Homeschooling was a very young movement that grew up in the 1980s, and our first graduates were in 1991. And we organized the first graduation ceremony for PHAA on July 9th, 1991 in the Villa restaurant in a ballroom. We had a dinner, and then one of our champions, Joe Pitts, gave the commencement speech. Afterwards, we only had 5 graduates that we could dig up from all over the state who came to that ceremony, and every one of them was required to give a speech at the graduation ceremony. After all, we had to have something to take up the time at the graduation ceremony. That was our first graduation ceremony, and PHAA has been organizing graduation ceremonies ever since. For a while, we had them only in the Harrisburg area. Then we split off, and we have one in Pittsburgh now and another near Valley Forge at Ursinus College. This year, for the first and only time, because we don't plan to repeat it, we may have our graduation ceremony online. We will make our final decision in May, the graduation, or at least a month before the ceremony. So the first graduation ceremony is supposed to be on, I think it's June 4th. So we'll make it at least a month before then. Our graduates in the 1992-93 school year were starting to apply for Pennsylvania High School, PHAA, anyway, Pennsylvania Higher Education something Assistance Agency. What it is, it's a state agency that gives state scholarship grants for college. In order to get those grants, you had to be a high school graduate. And at first, they wouldn't recognize Pennsylvania Homeschoolers Accreditation Agency graduates as high school graduates, so they wouldn't give our students any PHAA grants. So with the intervention of Representative Ron Cowell, who is still head of the House Education Committee, the Pennsylvania Department of Education recognized PHAA as an accreditation agency to accredit homeschoolers' diplomas. And from that point on, PHAA has been recognized agency by the Pennsylvania Department of Education. Soon, two other homeschool organizations joined PHAA, BCEI, Bucksmont Christian Education Institute, and Erie County Homeschoolers, and they were recognized under the same provision. In 1993, we started publishing our first homeschooling newsletter, the Excelsior. We've been publishing it consistently ever since. It comes out quarterly. It includes a lot of student writing and also announcements from PHAA. In 1996, we became incorporated as a nonprofit organization. At first, we would have before we got incorporated and after for a while, we'd have our annual meetings after the PHAA graduation ceremonies. But in 1997, we held our first PHAA conference, and ever since, we have been having our annual meeting at our PHAA conference. This year, with our PHAA conference online, our annual membership meeting will be this afternoon at 5. And if you are a PHAA member, that includes parents and evaluators, you are invited to attend. You just have to click on the link. 1997, our membership voted that our requirement for a 10-page term paper would have to be 2,500 words. What happened is that Bill Gates got involved. He invented Windows and Microsoft Word, and from that point on, any paper, no matter how short, could be turned into a 10-page paper. All you had to do was make the font bigger and also expand the space between paragraphs. So we finally got wind of the computer revolution, and we changed our 10-page paper requirement to 2,500 words. And starting around that time, high school students were no longer handwriting their long papers. Can you imagine what a chore it is to handwrite a 10-page paper? In 2003, we established our first photo ID, a nice color photo ID that is still available from PHAA. It costs a minimum fee of just $10, and at that point, the College Board to require that people who take SAT tests have photo IDs. Now, nowadays you can get a photo ID from the driver's license people, even if you don't have a driver's license, but in those days, you didn't have that option. In 2005, we started our own website, which I've already referred to today, www.phaa.org. In 2005, our membership voted a definition of honors courses. Up to that point, evaluators had been giving some students honors designation for almost everything. You would find a high school transcript with honors phys ed and honors art, and it wasn't ever a defined term. We defined it at that point as meaning when a student gets special honors or when the student shows a special initiative, and that the evaluator has to note why it's being designated as honors in the evaluation letter. In 2009, our membership voted to require narrative evaluations. Up to that point, our evaluators were sometimes writing what are called short form evaluations, which don't tell anything about what the student is doing. About 90% of our evaluators were writing narrative evaluations, which described what the students were doing, which told about excellence in the program. Those are the kind of evaluations that colleges love to get from PHAA grad students. In fact, we attach the evaluation letters whenever we send out the transcripts. We think of the transcript as the summary of what the student did in a year, and as the evaluation letters of what they did. But we weren't requiring narrative evaluations, and that year we started, and we lost a few evaluators who didn't want to take the time, but we thought it was worth it because of our reputation being based partly on our excellent evaluations. In 2014, a new homeschooling law was passed in Pennsylvania, and it specifically recognized diploma organizations. Before then, the recognition was based on was based on things that were in regulation, but not in law, or even policy of the Department of Education, but not law. At that point, it became part of the law. In 2016, we took over one of those original homeschool organizations, Bucksmont Christian Educational Institute, and we started sending out their transcripts. We were establishing a precedent that no matter what happens, if you get a diploma from one of these organizations, that your transcript, which is proof that you graduated, will be available forever. So we are now even though BCEI ended at the end of the school year in 2016, we're sending out their transcripts, so there's no loss of continuity, and their graduates still can prove that they are high school graduates to employers and also to colleges. In 2016, we developed an online transcript program. Now, you might notice that we took over BCEI transcripts the same year, and the two are very much connected. When we took over setting out BCEI transcripts, I noticed how neat the BCEI transcripts looked as compared to PHAA transcripts, which were being done by the evaluators, and they were being done in all sorts of different fashions. So we wanted to standardize things and make our transcripts look as professional as BCEI transcripts. So we developed an online transcript program, so our evaluators fill out the transcripts online. This is the last year. The kids who are graduating in 2020 are the last students who can get transcripts that aren't from our online transcript program. In 2019, we moved the Excelsior online. Now it can have color pictures in it. Before it was black and white, and now it is on an exclusive website that only PHAA members can access because they need a username and password. You can find it at the bottom of the page at the PHAA.org website. And 2020, that's now, the PHAA conference moves online, and I think we're going to keep doing it online from now on because I think this is going to work out pretty well. We'll see. Now, I'm going to go through the process for the rest of the talk about what you do when you join PHAA, usually when your kids are going into 9th grade, and I'm going to take you all the way through graduation at the end of 12th grade and beyond. The very first step is filling in our filing form. You can either send in the mail-in filing form with a check or money order, or as you can see from the second line, you can click here to send in the online filing form. This is the first of PHAA's fees. It's a $45 fee, and you need to pay it to get a PHAA student number. and your evaluator needs the student number in order to create a transcript for you. So filing form is the first step, and that's what you do usually going into 9th grade. You can even do it as early as now in March for students who will be in 9th grade next year. During each year that you're in PHAA, you fill in a year's work checklist. This is available on the PHAA website. If you click on Other and look under Forms, the forms used to be more readily available right at the top of the page, but I put up a special COVID-19 update. And so they're not there right now because the COVID-19, but you can look under Other and still find them. The year's work checklist is also in the Guide to the Pennsylvania Homeschooler's Diploma, which you can download free on our website. And the requirements are what you have to do every year. We're very, very heavy on the English courses. And there's a good reason. We want to make sure that all of our graduates are literate, that they speak well, that they write well, that they are good readers. And we do by requiring that they do a lot of speaking, writing, and reading. And that all of these things that you do here require a lot of those things. But we don't tell you what books you have to read. We don't tell you what compositions you have to write or what you have to write about. We don't even tell you you have to write a research paper. We just say write a composition that is at least 10 pages, 2,500 words long. Now you can write a research paper if you want, and Patty Stout has a great session coming up on at 3 p.m. in this conference that you can attend for more information about writing a research paper. And you're also supposed to do a grammar requirement, but we've really minimized it. You can work through a quarter of a grammar textbooks, or you can simply show that your grammatical errors were corrected in the process of writing your compositions. And you also have to give at least one speech during the year to a group outside the immediate family. Now there's an alternative. The alternative English requirements are 2 college English courses plus a speech, or 2 English courses plus a speech. I meant to say, or an AP English course plus a speech. Now there's several sessions at this conference about AP courses. One's at 1 p.m. and it's AP teachers talking about their courses, and the other is at 2 p.m. and it's a discussion of AP students with a nice panel of AP students discussing the courses and also how they create community in those courses. So those are PHAA's English requirements. Those are all and. You have to do every one of those every year. Now, looking at some of these, you can read 25 books or a literature anthology in 10 books, or 10 books of the Bible and 15 books. Of those books, 3 have to be classics. Now, what is a classic? Well, some things are automatically classics. Any book that has stood the test of time, with a few exceptions, are classics. In other words, anything by Shakespeare, Jane Austen, any books like that are classics. Mostly books that have been made into movies are also classics. But what isn't a classic? A classic isn't a book that is in a series, say the Hardy Boys or Nancy Drew or even J.A. Hentley, where all the books in the series have essentially the same plot. No, a classic, it can't be one of those series books, but it can be a lot of different things. In fact, a classic for a student who is not a good reader can be a Newbery Award-winning book, which are basically books like Island of the Blue Dolphins, Sounder, and other books like that. So classics can be those sorts of books, but it all depends upon the student. My rule of thumb as an evaluator is because any book that I'm proud to mention in the narrative evaluation letter as an example of the books that were read as the student that year. In other words, for a poor reader, that would be fine. But to have a elementary school type classic be one of the examples of a book for a kid who's going to college, that wouldn't be as good. So let's go on to the next topic. This is about the paper, a research paper. And the reason, now there's a good session coming up by Patty Stout about research papers, so I don't want to belabor this. And as I said, you don't have to do a research paper, but I just wanted to mention something about research papers. They don't have to just include book sources. Here's a paper by my son, and it was about recycling, Armstrong County Industries. My son, who's now a college professor, by the way, and what he included was interviews. He interviewed one of the former PPG employees who, when PPG had gone on strike in Ford City, Pennsylvania, and that destroyed one of the biggest industries in Pennsylvania. They decided that they weren't going to allow PPG to make glass in the efficient float glass method. They wanted to maintain plate glass, which took a lot more employees to have to spend lots of time polishing it. It was a great interview, but you can have interviews. Here's another paper I once saw which had interviews. One of the students who I evaluated planned to be a missionary. And so she wanted to learn about missionaries of the past and present, and she wrote a paper in which she compared missionaries of the past with missionaries of the present. She read in books about missionaries of the past, and she interviewed by email missionaries of the present who were being supported by her church. And she learned a lot, including the fact that every missionary has to get good at learning languages. And that dedicated this girl to really studying hard on foreign languages. I've gone through English so far, but there's more to our program than just English courses. English is just one of our courses, and we're very heavily into those. You had to do this, and this. But for other courses, for a full year credit, you can do this, or this, or this, or this, or this, or this, or this. In other words, there are a lot of different ways you can get course credit in our program. You can work through over 2/3 of a textbook. That usually means writing the answers to the questions at the end of the chapters, but it could mean writing summaries of each chapter. Essentially, whatever way you do it, you should have some sort of written record. It could be your questions or summaries. It could be logged entries showing 120 or 120 logged hours if you keep track of your hours. It could be a research paper that includes at least 3 non-encyclopedic references and demonstrates learning of a subject, including a conclusion based on students' own research. Or it could include a college course. If a 3 or 4 credit college course is 1 year of high school, it's not 3 years of high school. For example, Spanish 1 in high school is first semester Spanish, 1 3-credit college course. Spanish 2 in high school is 1 semester of college, 1 3-semester college course. So a college course that's 3 credits or 4 credits is 1 high school credit. AP courses, again, we're having some AP session. That's a great way to do it. The AP courses have to have college approved syllabi, and almost all the courses from Pennsylvania homeschoolers online are College Board approved. Now, there's also half-year courses. And these requirements are a lot lower. 1/3 of a textbook, or 60 daily logged entries, or 60 hours of logged study. So what do I mean by logged entries, logged study? She has kept her own log in a planning book, and she wrote about what she did every day. She got credit from this. Today for English, I worked on my term paper, research and extracting quotes from the books of, and so on. Look at these entries. If your student keeps logged entries like this, this is proof that they've done a course. All they have to have is 180 of them. And if they keep track of their hours, logged entries, they get credit that way. Okay, that's a year's work credit. You take this year's work checklist with you to your evaluation. Now, many people are going to be doing online evaluations this year, and evaluators are going to be discussing how to do virtual evaluations during coronavirus. We're still requiring evaluations for 9th through 12th grades, but you can do them virtually. Now, getting back to the year's work checklist, this is something you show to your evaluator, and that's what the basis for the evaluator to write your evaluation letter. And your evaluator is going to put together your transcript. And the transcript is going to show 4 years of English, 3 years of math, 3 years of science, 3 years of social studies, and 2 years of arts and humanities. But there are other courses that you have to take, but you can take anywhere from 7th to 12th. And you only need a half year of each of these. And they don't have to be completed in 1 year, and they don't have to have this course title. For example, general mathematics, you don't have to have a course called general mathematics between grades 7 and 12. Of course, consumer math is general math, so is business math, but you don't have to take those courses 7 through 12. Because every math course, be it algebra or geometry or anything else or higher, includes general mathematics. Similar, if you've gotten to trigonometry, that includes algebra and geometry. Or get to calculus, that includes all of these. So basically, you have to complete these, but not with this very course title in them. But you have to complete at least a half of year of these between 7th and 12th. And what you do on the graduation checklist is you indicate the grade level when you completed that half year, whether it be 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, or 12. English, 3 years of maths, and so on. That's how the transcript is organized. See, it has English. You have to have at least 4 years. Now, this particular student, John Q. student, I call him, completed English 9, actually has completed 8 years, but you have to have 4 separate years. Even though he had 2 years of English in 9th grade, 2 years in 10th, 2 credits in 11th, if he didn't do any English in 12th grade, he would have only had 3 years of English, because our understanding of the word year is that you can't do more than 1 year in 1 year's time. You can get more than 1 year, but it only counts for the graduation requirements as 4 years if you've done a year of English in all 4 years. We have this requirement to make sure our graduates take 4 years to graduate. It turns out that a rule of thumb that the military uses and that other agencies, including colleges and employers, use on the quality of diploma is how fast it can be completed. When it gets out that a diploma can be completed in 3 years or 2 years or even 1 year, that downgrades the diploma in the estimation of those who look at it. So we're a 4-year diploma. Now, freshman year, we have nothing that says you can't start the freshman year when you're 12. You can still graduate earlier with our diploma, but you have to start earlier. Some kids are ready after their junior year to go to college, and they can go even though they haven't completed our 4 years of English. And we will send a letter to the college when they go pre-graduation that we will give them the diploma after their freshman year of college if they complete a year of English in college. The other courses, only 3 years are required of the other subject areas, 3 years of math, 3 years of science, 3 years of social studies, 2 years of arts and humanities. Those are the requirements for graduation. Of the final transcript, the evaluator's signature, after the evaluator fills it in online, will appear automatically along with the evaluator's name and credential number. The supervisor for the final transcript will sign in 1, 2, 3, 4 places and also at the bottom. And the graduate will sign in one place at the bottom. So this is the a final transcript. Before the final year, if a transcript goes out to a college, it doesn't need the parent's signature. That's the supervisor's, the parent, and it doesn't need the student's signature. This is only for the final transcript. And we need the final transcript either mailed to us or turned into a PDF and the PDF emailed to us before we will issue the diploma. We also need the evaluation letters for 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grades, because as I said, our evaluators write narrative evaluations, which brings out the great things about the student, and we attach them to the transcript. The transcript is the summary, and the evaluation letters provide detail. And I'll tell you that colleges, especially the small ones, read every bit of the evaluation letters. Now, Penn State doesn't read any of the evaluation letters, but they've accepted every single one of our graduates so far, every single one of our students, because we have a tremendous reputation with colleges for success and our students being literate. At the end, you mail in the diploma request form, or you click here to submit the online diploma request form. With that, you have to show us that your kid has met the requirements for those half-year courses. Just show them by indicating. If you go to the online form, you put the grade level down in the online form because we can't see that in the transcript. So we need your PHAA transcript properly signed. If you mail it in, you would mail it in. If you do the online diploma request form, you can email it in. But we need you to email that transcript signed by you, not just the evaluator. We need copies of the high school evaluation letters, but when the evaluator fills in your transcript, they can upload those evaluation letters, so they may have already been sent in. You would also send in the graduation checklist if you send in the mail-in diploma request form. You don't have to do that on the online form. And the fee is $55. Those are our total required fees. The $45 fee with a filing form to join PHAA, and the $55 fee at graduation. Those are all our required fees. And if you don't graduate, you don't pay the second fee. We're a bargain. We would want you to check during Eastern if you're attending one of our graduation ceremonies, so that we'll save the diploma for you to give out at the graduation ceremony. If we end up doing our graduation ceremony online, we're going to snail mail the diplomas to everybody. But normally we save on postage and we hold the diplomas to the ceremonies to those who are graduating there. Let me show you a bit about our graduation ceremonies. See this masthead at the top of our page when you come to the PHAA page? That's one of our Harrisburg graduation ceremonies. Homeschoolers performing, giving speeches. Look at that guitar. That kid was a genius at it. And then they also get a diploma. Here's the diploma that one of my daughters earned, Hannah Richman. The diploma is signed by me as evaluator, by your evaluator, and also by the parent. and it has a diploma number on it. That diploma number means it's a unique diploma. We can always find your records by diploma number, and we can also find it in your index. But even if you've changed your name and we can't find you, we can always find your records of your diploma by the number. Now let's get beyond graduation. We've had some studies of how homeschoolers do, and graduates of our diploma program, their basic score, their median score is somewhere between 600 and 649 on the verbal. Now 500 is the median score by definition for school students. So we're way above school students. Why is this? There are 3 reasons. 1, we have all of those English requirements. That ensures that our graduates have good verbal skills, that they read a lot. They have to read 25 books in a year. They do very well on achievement tests because of that. 2, homeschoolers in general do much better with reading. It's really one of the huge successes of homeschooling is that homeschool boys read as well as homeschool girls. That is not true of school students. That's because school students, boys, hardly read at all, but homeschoolers are often read to when they're young. They love reading. Boys will start learning reading, will start learning to read late in many cases, at even 8, 9, but by the time they get to graduation, they become very, very good readers. The math, I said there was one other reason. The other reason is we chase away those students who don't like to read, so they graduate with their parent-issued diplomas or from other organizations. The math scores of homeschooling have not been that great a success. As I say, 500 is the median for homeschoolers, for school students, but for homeschoolers, it's mostly grouped in this 550 to 599. Homeschooling has not solved a big problem. In schools and in homeschooling, homeschool girls just don't do very well at math. Now, we've had surveys, and a college admissions officer at Penn State conducted a survey which have shown how homeschoolers have done and what they've done after college. We did a study where we got a huge response rate. All of this blue is the number of people who responded, of our graduates, and it was conducted 6 months after graduation. We were asking them what they did right after graduation, and it turned out we got a great response rate of about 3/4. What did they do? 43% went to college right away. Of those responding, 32% got employed, 7% were self-employed, and so on. Some were doing volunteer work. What were their plans? For the future? Well, anyway, what were their grade point averages? This is a key one. I've forgotten what this one's about. Grade point average. Oh, I know, this is where whether they went to college. This is what kind of, no, that's different. Anyway, I've forgotten my own graph. What were their grade point averages? This is the astounding statistic. Our kids did exceptionally well in their first semester at college. 3/4 of those responding, now we had a lot responding, 3/4 of those responding made the dean's list, 3.5 to 4.0 grade point averages. Another 1/8 were still in honor roll range, and only an 1/8 were below. Now, why is this? There's 2 reasons. One is the people whose kids didn't do very well were probably part of this group that didn't respond. But the other reason is that there's the homeschool effect. The first time that kids go to school, the first semester, they work incredibly hard for grades. They are so excited to be getting grades from somebody other than their parents that they just work really, really hard. And so their grade point averages are fabulous. Now, you can ruin the homeschool effect. You could send your kid to high school for 12th grade, and they'll graduate with a public school diploma from your local school. And they'll have a great grade point average the last year of high school. But it's not going to help you all that much because you'll ruin the effect. this is the kind of colleges they attend. First year after graduation, when they attend college, 60%, second year, 9%, and so on. And this is the kind of college they go to. This amount went to a Christian college. Green, that was a public college. Blue is a private college, and yellow is other college. And here's one to help you with your future planning. This is how long after graduation they get married. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. See, about 42%. So now you can do your long-term planning. Well, that's all I'm going to mention here. Let me go back to non-screen method, and Susan's going to start asking some questions aloud that you posted. Any questions posted, Susan?
One parent wondered why, in that one transcript you showed, why was the English and literature class separate? I would say that's not common.
That was a decision by the evaluator.
It's not common. Usually that's together. Howard, if you could stop sharing your screen, that would be good.
I'm just trying to do that right now.
Hit the green button at the bottom.
Well, I'm trying. I may not succeed. So go on to your final things, Susan. There's only 3 minutes left if there aren't any more questions.
Okay, there's one more question that somebody asked about: how does the recently passed law due to the coronavirus regarding education requirements affect the requirements for this year? And I'll just say very briefly that for the PHAA Diploma, you will still need an evaluation. We're not going to have the same deadlines, and that is described on our PHAA website in a special COVID-19 section of our website. So you'll be able to see that there. And
finally, I figured it out. Okay, Susan, let them know about the next session and
okay.
The survey.
The next session, I'm going to put it up in the chat. The next session I'll be leading, it's called Homeschooling, Procrastination and Decluttering, The Surprising Connections. And that'll be starting right at 11 o'clock. So you have a tiny break here and get yourself a snack, get yourself a cup of tea or coffee, and stretch a little bit, and then we'll be back. And I'm also going to share, once again, I've already shared at the beginning of the chat, but I'll share that link to the online survey.
For more information, I see someone asked about our COVID-19. For details about it, what our response is, go to PHAA.org and click on COVID-19 at the top of the page.
Right. And we'll be talking about that more a little bit later today also. Okay, so I think we're going to close out this session now. Thanks everyone for coming. And
leave it up so people can find the link to the next session for a minute.
whoops. Oh, I thought I had done that. Hold up. I posted twice. Just a minute. Oh, there. Bonnie Gonzalez posted the online survey. Okay. And thanks again for everyone for coming. Really appreciate you coming out for our first ever online conference. And we're going to end the meeting now.